Hello, it is Rachel from 7 and All. I'm a second generation homeschooler and mom to 3 little boys. And this is going to be my February homeschool update. I'm going to share about how homeschool has been going, share some resources I've been enjoying, and I'm going to end this video with an announcement on some of my own projects that have been in the works. So let's jump right in. In my previous update, I shared that December and January were unusual months for us with a lot of visitors and a lot of field trips, so not as much in the way of normal school. February was transitioning back into the regular routine of dad's back at work, back to normal routines, no more holidays and all the fun festivities, which are fun. But it was also really nice to be back into normal rhythms. It's nice to be getting back into the routine. I am the kind of person who appreciates holiday, but I also appreciate the predictability of normal routines. And being back in normal routine at this point has been showing me with the 2 older boys, my pre-K son and my first grader, school's going really well. They know what to do. They have these habits and these routines that have been implemented consistently for long enough that, it's just going very smoothly. Especially my oldest son is becoming a lot more independent with what he can do, being able to take initiative, get out his books and get them done. They are not the problem. The problem with homeschool these days is someone who's very adorable, very fast, has a smile and a giggle that will just melt your heart, and his hobbies involve constantly climbing on tables, eating erasers, taking pencils, running away, and just basically putting everything that's not food inside his mouth. So yes, the big challenge with homeschool right now actually has nothing to do with homeschool, and it's my feisty, adorable toddler, newly turned 1 year old. He is a lot of fun, but definitely, like I've said before, I think homeschooling with a newborn is a whole lot easier than homeschooling with a toddler, and this is very true because homeschooling when he didn't move and would take a nice little nap in his bed through school time, that was one thing. This is something else entirely. So we are working on the boundaries of not climbing on tables and not pulling all the books off of shelves, but he's a new 1 year old, so that is going to be a boundary that's going to take a little while for him to really grasp. He's a lot of fun, definitely. As we all know, toddlers add their own flavor to the school day. But as I've said in some of my videos before about homeschooling with little ones, I'm just determined that I'm going to do this. I'm going to love my toddler. I'm going to enjoy my toddler, and I'm going to get the schoolwork done. It doesn't have to be a one or the other. I can keep teaching you, and yes, it will take a little bit longer. There will be more interruptions, but little by little, we will do it. And also, putting him in the high chair with snacks is one thing that works very well right now. I think there will be other activities that will work well when he gets a little bit older, like, Play-Doh or activities like that. But right now he's at that stage where he's too little. He will just eat the Play-Doh. He's too little for a lot of activities because he's just going to eat them. But he's too big to just be a baby. So, we're kind of in that interesting toddler stage right now. As usual, we've been reading a lot of great books. These were some of our chapter book read-alouds, and we've been doing our chapter books mainly at bedtime. That tends to be the peaceful time of day when we can read longer chapter books with both of the older boys while the little one runs wild, as usual. So we read The Wild Robot Escapes, and then we're just about finishing Mr. Popper's Penguins. And this is a very old copy with multiple pages trying to fall out. This is just what happens when books get really old in this climate. The glue kind of becomes not sticky anymore. But I've been holding it together as I've been reading it. I don't think a child could read it without the pages falling out, but I have skills. Both of these are great. The old and the new, they're both just really fun reads for my boys. We've been continuing to use The Curious Kinder in the morning, and we're now onto the second segment, which is themed on rainforests, and it goes through this book again and again with other readings, and I'm just loving it. I know I talked about this last month, but I really like The Curious Kinder. No surprise, probably, but I am enjoying it, and this one is just such a fun one in the series. It's kind of intense because there's a few more scary animals in it, like crocodiles and snakes and spiders. So my younger son, my second son's reaction to some of the scary animals, like he's very vocal as we're going through this book. He's like, I don't want to go on that bridge, there's monkeys, because he's had some experiences with monkeys being a little aggressive around here. So rainforest is very relatable. A lot of these animals are quite relatable to us. I've been really excited by some of the gains we've been making in Spanish reading recently. So for my older son, he's at a point where he's reading these books quite well. So I had gotten a handful of these Leyendo a Pasos books for him, and there's not, they're basic. There's very few words per page right here, but they are, some of them are a little bit longer words, and they do involve a variety of letters and different types of syllabus. So it did take a while to get to this point where he was comfortable reading these, but we're really getting a lot smoother with these. He is just about to start trabajando con palabras dos, and this will be really good for him because this has some of the harder syllables with R, consonant L, or ones ending in M and N. This one also is where we have more of the little reading passages and answering the questions. So I'm excited for him to start this level. I think the first book was a little on the easy side for him, but it was still good for him to go through. But this is the one where he really needs to get these nuances of reading down for a little bit harder syllabus. So I'm excited that he's gonna be for sure starting this in probably the first or second week of March. And then for my younger son, he read his first couple of words in Spanish. So we've been working on some of those basic syllabus, and then I wrote sapo on the whiteboard, and he read it. He read sapo, and he's reading words like papa, mama, bebe, mesa, just simple words like that. And I'm like, God, I feel like I've done a better job of actually teaching the syllables, actually doing a little bit more explicit teaching with this one. Because I think with my oldest, I was kind of just waiting and hoping he would kind of get it and it would just click and I wouldn't have to teach Spanish phonics. But I learned from him. Really in the past month, I've started explicitly teaching, okay, well in Spanish, the vowels make this sound. And so we're gonna work on just these syllables. And now we're starting to put two syllables together, and he was actually reading 2-syllable words with just these few syllables that we've learned so far. But I was excited to see him actually reading his first words in Spanish. Also regarding my oldest, we are coming to the end of sequence 1. We are going to be wrapping up the last couple of weeks. We're going to be finishing sequence 1 in March, which is a little bit of a weird time to finish. And that was because we started sequence 1 before summer break last year. So we had already done some of it before summer break, and we did do some school during summer weeks as well. So we're finishing that up in early March, and I was thinking about what to do next. Do I go straight into ancient history and get an early start on that before summer break? Still not sure. We might end up starting that before summer break, but I did decide that with the timing of when we're finishing sequence 1, we're going to go straight into using He is Risen Indeed, an Easter study, which is a morning time guide available on our website for just $9.99. And this is an Easter study that includes scripture as well as history. This was one of the reasons that made me think, hey, I could just go straight into this since we're finishing up sequence 1, is that there's a history book called Daily Life at the Time of Jesus that we're reading as part of this. And this is a 4-week morning time guide, scripture, history, it has a hymn study, and it also has a weekly handicraft. So this is a little bit more targeted toward older kids, really elementary kids, compared to some of the other Easter units you'll see that seem more preschool, kindergarten level. So I've never actually used this with my own kids before because they just seemed really too little. But this year, with my oldest really grasping history through sequence 1, as well as the hymn studies that we've been doing with morning virtues with sequence 1, I felt that, hey, you know what? He's gonna be 7 now. I think he's gonna be old enough to really get a lot more out of this, and maybe we can repeat this in future years. So I'm excited. I finally get to use my own Easter morning time guide. And so we'll be doing that for 4 weeks. It's scheduled to start 3 weeks before Easter and then 1 week after Easter. With Bible, then we have our history readings, hymns, and there are activity pages as well. And so we have our lyrics for our hymns. We have some coloring pages, copy work for the hymns, and he's now at a point where he can handle copy work. You know, at the beginning of 1st grade, this would have been way too much writing for him. He's gotten a lot closer. This will still be a stretch. I might still break it up or have him do part of it because he is going to be just newly 7 years old, but this will be a lot more doable for him now. I'm excited to finally use it. All right, I promised you some announcements, so here they are. First up, I am indeed working on developing a first grade program as a follow-up to the Curious Kinder. And this is due to the requests of many of you. So I do want to tell you, good job. Keep on requesting. I do listen to your requests, and sometimes it takes me time just because of the limits of the time-space continuum, and sometimes because of the limits of my own brain and really needing to settle on an idea that I feel good about. But I am indeed working on a first grade curriculum at this moment. It took me a while to settle on an idea that I really loved. So we have the Curious Kinder, which was really just my ideal plan for a 5-year-old, delighting in literature with a 5-year-old. And then we have ancient history, diving into learning about ancient history, which can be used with an early elementary student, but I did feel it was more appropriate for 2nd grade and up. It will probably be a stretch for a lot of 1st graders, which leaves us with a gap. What do you do with the 1st grader? And I finally landed on, well, I wanted to do classic tales, which is what a lot of curriculums and Charlotte Mason curriculums, literature-based curriculums do, is begin with focusing on classic tales before moving on to real focused history study. And that approach does make a lot of sense. It really jives with where I stand as far as the educational progression. However, I wanted to do something a little bit different because I did feel like sometimes a whole year of literature just focused on classic tales can feel a little bit boring. And then it feels like, man, we're reading all just the boring and old books for school, and we have to save all the fun and new books for free time. You know me, you know Curious Kinder, you know that I like including variety and fun in new books. So here's the pattern that I settled on. We are indeed focusing on a year-long introduction to classic children's literature, classic tales, fairy tales, folk tales, fables. However, that is not all we are doing. Every week, yes, we have a folk tale, fable, fairy tale that we're focusing on, but alongside that tale, we also have a newer picture book that is pulled from a variety of genres, a variety of authors. And the two titles are connected in some way. They have some theme connecting them. So for example, we're learning about The Little Mermaid, the classic tale of The Little Mermaid. To go alongside The Little Mermaid, we're reading a picture book biography about the men who invented the bathysphere and who dived deep into the ocean using a bathysphere. So we have the connecting idea of the Little Mermaid who is curious about the realm unknown to her, which is the land. And then we have the connecting idea of these inventors, these men who are interested in exploring the realm unknown to them, the deep sea. So we have curiosity about unknown realms just going in 2 different directions. Or for another example, we have the tall tale John Henry as our classic tale for 1 week. And during that week, we are also reading Locomotive by Brian Floca, which is just a beautifully illustrated picture book that really lets you know a lot about journeying across the United States in the early days of the Transcontinental Railroad. So there we have the connection between this classic tall tale that is related to the building of the railroad. And then we have a more modern picture book that is just talking about the railroad journey itself, and a really beautiful book that has a lot of excellent literary merit in its own right. So there's my basic concept. We are also going to be having a loop of readings on geography. We're going to be having some art handicrafts designed by my sister. We will have poetry readings, music readings, introduction to musical genres. So we're also going to be looping in certain other subjects. I'm seeing all the pieces coming together now. And my working title is But First Fairy Tales, under the idea of before we get on to serious history study with these young 6-year-olds, we're going to start with fairy tales. We're going to start with these classic tales. Not all of them are fairy tales, just you can't put every kind of tale into the title. But we're going to be starting with classic tales to lay a foundation of understanding literature. And in my student book, because you know in Curious Kinder we have a parent guide and a student book, in the student book we're going to have little just short lesson pages introducing children to features of literature, introducing them to the idea of a hero and a villain, introducing them to plot We'll talk about appearances. Why does the author bother describing the appearance of a character? What does that matter for the story? Well, it matters. Here's why. We'll be encouraging you to build narration skills and just the building blocks of really deeply understanding literature, reading classic tales as well as new books. We'll have a lot of variety in the feast. I'm excited to show it to you when I can pull it all together. We are having a spring sale over at Where'd You Learn That? So we're welcoming March with a sale. I know it's not technically spring, but I love pretty flowers of spring graphics, so let's just name this a spring sale. We'll have 25% off everything on the website. The sale will be live for the first 10 days of March if you are watching this live, March 2025. You can go to my website and use the promo code SPRING25 to get 25% off your entire purchase of resources from my website. All right, I hope you enjoyed this chatty homeschool update. Let me know in the comments down below what are some of the challenges or what are some of the great things in your homeschool this month, and let me know what's the best book you've read to your kids this month. I'll see you later. Bye.